The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. Where once the voices of 1,000 species echoed through its crystalline halls, now only the soft hum of emergency power systems remained. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vraxian Empire, once the most feared military force in 3 spiral arms, sat slumped in his ceremonial armor, his 6 eyes reflecting the dying light of distant stars. "How many worlds have we lost?" asked Chancellor Myrex. Her usually melodious Altarian voice cracked with exhaustion. 47 systems in the last cycle, replied General Thondis, his massive Krogan frame seeming smaller than ever. The Devourers have consumed everything in the Outer Rim. My fleets, my invincible fleets. His voice trailed off into bitter silence. The enemy had no name that could be pronounced by organic tongues. They were simply called the Devourers, a mechanical plague that consumed entire worlds, converting matter into more of themselves. They had swept through the galaxy like a dark tide, overwhelming even the most advanced civilizations with their endless, adaptive swarms. The Vraxians, masters of warfare for 10 millennia, had thrown their entire armada at the enemy. Their plasma cannons and fusion bombs had barely scratched the Devourer hulls. The Altarians, with their reality-bending technology, had tried to phase-shift entire enemy fleets out of existence, only to watch them adapt and return stronger. Even the ancient Krogans, whose very bones were harder than starship armor, had seen their warriors fall like wheat before the scythe. "There is one possibility," a small voice spoke from the far end of the chamber. All heads turned toward the human delegation, a species so young that many in the council still considered them barely evolved primates. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood slowly, her simple uniform a stark contrast to the ornate garments of the elder races. "The humans wish to speak?" Zethkar's tone carried centuries of condescension. "Your species has been spacefaring for less than a standard galactic century. What could you possibly offer when the greatest military powers in the galaxy have failed?" Chen's expression didn't change. "We offer what we've always offered, ourselves." A ripple of confused murmurs passed through the chamber. General Thondis snorted derisively. "Your entire military consists of primitive kinetic weapons and chemical propellants. You barely have faster-than-light capability. The Devourers would consume your worlds before you could even mount a defense." "You're probably right," Chen agreed quietly. "But we're not talking about defending our worlds. We're talking about buying time for yours." She activated the holographic display, showing the current position of the Devourer swarms. They're advancing along predictable vectors, consuming resources as they go. If we position human forces at these choke points, red dots appeared on the map, we can slow their advance. "At the cost of your entire species," Chancellor Myrex whispered. Her voice filled with horror. "Maybe," Chen shrugged. "But that's what humans do. When everyone else falls back, we hold the line." The chamber erupted in protest, but Chen raised her hand. "You want to know what makes humans different? It's not our technology or our strength. It's that we've never learned when to quit. Every human child grows up hearing stories of 300 Spartans holding a mountain pass, of soldiers charging machine gun nests with nothing but rifles, of firefighters running into burning buildings while everyone else runs out." She paused, looking each ambassador in the eye. "You've all built great civilizations, mastered incredible technologies, conquered vast territories. But you've also learned to calculate acceptable losses, to make rational retreats, to preserve your forces for more favorable engagements. We never learned that lesson." Admiral Torres stepped forward from the human delegation. "Our ships are already moving into position. We've got 10,000 vessels ready to engage the leading Devourer swarms at Kepler 442b. We know it's suicide, but we'll hold them as long as we can." "This is madness," Zethkar protested. "Even if you somehow slow them down, what's the point?" "The point," Chen said, "is that while we're dying, you'll be living. While we're buying time, you'll be evacuating civilians, moving your fleets to better positions, maybe even finding a way to stop them permanently." The holographic display shifted, showing human naval formations taking positions throughout the contested sectors. Thousands of ships crewed by galactic standards, but crewed by beings who had never met a hopeless fight they wouldn't take. "Why?" Chancellor Myrex asked, tears streaming down her face. "Why would you sacrifice yourselves for species that barely acknowledge your existence?" Chen smiled, and for the first time it reached her eyes. "Because someone has to. Because that's what it means to be human. We don't run calculations on acceptable losses. We don't measure the odds before doing what's right. We just hold the line. 3 days later, the first human fleet engaged the Devourers at Kepler 442b. The battle lasted 14 hours. Not a single human ship survived, but the Devourer advance slowed by 37%. At Proxima Centauri, Captain Martinez and his crew of 87 held a debris field for 6 days against impossible odds, using nothing but mining charges and obsolete railguns. They died to the last person, but the evacuation convoy behind them reached safety. At Wolf 359, Commander Zhang deliberately crashed her dreadnought into a Devourer mothership, taking out half the enemy formation. Her final transmission was 3 words: "Earth sends regards." The pattern repeated across 100 systems. Humans died by the millions, their ships burning like brief candles against the dark. But each stand bought precious time. Each sacrifice slowed the unstoppable tide just a little more. In the end, it was a Vraxian scientist who found the frequency that disrupted Devourer coordination. An Altarian engineer who figured out how to weaponize it. A Krogan general who led the final assault that shattered the mechanical plague once and for all. But it was humanity that held the line, long enough for genius to find its moment. The War Memorial on Earth bears a simple inscription, in every galactic language. They stood when standing was impossible. They fought when fighting was hopeless. They held the line when the line was all that remained. And in the deepest archives of the Galactic Council, one file remains classified above all others: the complete tactical analysis of humanity's last stand. The conclusion, written by the greatest military minds in the galaxy, reads simply, "Recommendation. Never again underestimate a species that has confused bravery with stupidity for so long that they cannot tell the difference." Below that, in human handwriting, someone had added, "We prefer the term optimistic."